Are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh, it's Festivus for the rest of us, everybody.
So it is time.
Looking forward to this all day.
As promised. Can hardly contain my excitement. December 23rd, a.k.a. Festivus. A Festivus for the rest of us. Thank you, Frank Costanza. It's a Festivus miracle.
It is. It's a Festivus miracle.
No feats of strength tonight, but rapid fire is going to be all airing of grievances in honor of Festivus. So we're going to get into it right now, and we are going to start with this on ESPN's College Game Day from IU head coach Curt Cignetti. What, about 2 hours or so? 3 hours before
almost
kickoff?
No, it was about two.
Like
it was being aired as I was driving to the stadium, so somewhere between 5:45 and 6 o'clock. So we're talking 2 hours before kickoff. This is what you were hearing.
Okay, of course. There's a lot of skeptics. There's a lot of doubters. I get it, right? Haven't beat a top 25 team. Nebraska's 25th in the coach poll and beat their 56-7. And I've never beat a top 25 team. Well, Coastal Carolina back when we were little James Madison, moving up to the Sun Belt there, 22nd end of the year, we beat them 47-7. Okay. So we don't just beat top 25 teams, we beat the shit out of them. Okay.
Okay, Vince, you first.
Oh, I listened to him say that on the drive in, and at that point, I knew that Notre Dame was going to whoop their butt. Like, I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And this was, by the way, just so everybody understands the sequence of events, this was after the Notre Dame did their player walk from the Basilica to the stadium. So Notre Dame is now in the stadium, in the locker room, getting ready, doing their thing. Marcus Freeman is in there along with all of his other coaches, actually coaching the kids up, getting ready for the game. And this numbskull is out on the stage just trying to, I don't know what he was doing, a little self-gratification out there, trying to pump everybody up and get everybody excited. And at that point, I was like, this game is not going to be close because he has no idea the arena that he is about to step into and the gladiators that he is about to fight. And it played out exactly like that.
I mean,
he coached scared. He was scared. His team, puckered up. It didn't end well. And why would you do that? Why would you paint the biggest target possible on you and your team by going out on that stage within 2 hours of kickoff?
You're gonna sound off like that, and then in the biggest game of your life, you're gonna punt when you've got the ball in plus territory in the first quarter, and you're already trailing. Like they got the ball at the Notre Dame 37, and you're gonna punt. Because I get it. Like, okay, 37-47, that's a 54-yard field goal. That's not a short field goal, but you're gonna punt instead of going for it, like. With all this talk, and then you punt again in the fourth quarter when you're down 20-3, and then you're going to sit here and tell me about how you beat Coastal Carolina.
Seriously, like, and Nebraska was 25th in the coaches poll. Like, you had to single out a specific poll.
Congratulations for beating the team everybody else in the country has beaten for the last 15 years.
If you're going to go back and you're going to talk about teams that were ranked when you beat them, like half the teams on Notre Dame's schedule were ranked when they beat them, and because they beat them, they fell out of the rankings. Come on, man! Like that was just.
I'm just glad we don't have to listen to this guy anymore. And
Seriously.
Now, like anytime this guy starts puffing his chest and his whatever else, like all you got to do is point at the scared look on his face all night long. He coached scared all night. And players played scared all night for all this puffing the chest and all the bravado and everything else. As soon as Jeremiah Love housed that touchdown, 98 yards, he was scared the rest of the night. He had no counterpunch. He had no idea what to do.
I mean, they were running draw plays.
It's like the Russian coach in Miracle.
Yeah. He doesn't know what to do. Yeah, he had no idea what to do in this game. He had no clue. He thought he explained away the loss to Ohio State when there was a clear differentiation between talent.
Right.
Okay. He thought he explained that, we can't go on the silent count, and special teams was really bad, and that's why we lost this game.
It was about all this other stuff. Yeah. It wasn't about the fact that they were out talented.
Yeah. We're going to fix all of that. Okay, sure you are. Okay. So then when it's 3rd and long, you're running the ball against Notre Dame when you couldn't really get anything going in the run game because your quarterback, who was born in Canada, so wasn't going to have any problem with the cold, couldn't complete a pass. You didn't think he could do it on 3rd and long, so you're just handing the ball off and Notre Dame's tackling you for a loss. Like that's how you're coaching this game? I mean, I actually felt bad for the arrogant IU fans because of the product that was put on the field by Curt Cignetti and the plays that he was calling.
Vince, I said for 2 weeks that Notre Dame, like, you had 2 very well-coached teams, but on Friday night, there was one well-coached team, and it was also the team with more talent. And I said that the talent was going to rise to the top, and you were going to see a difference, and that was going to be the difference. But it was also the difference in how they were coached and the mentality that they had. You know, like Notre Dame didn't need a coach, you know, trying to blow all this confidence into their ears and their hearts. You know, like they had it already.
And, you know, I've said this before, and I still believe it. Like, I thought that he did a pretty decent job of, you know, using that bravado to make his guys believe that they could win. And all. And I don't have a problem with that.
That's never done anything.
Right. I actually have no problem with that. You know what I mean? But doing it on game day inside of 2 hours before kickoff that's where it crossed the line for me. That's when it became too much. That's when it became an act. Like that's when it became a circus.
Doing that live,
right?
Because I think was it Shane Gillis who pointed it out? Like, the fact that you're doing that while your team is in the stadium preparing for the biggest games of their lives, and you're going out and doing a TV opportunity on game day. Like, it's one thing if you had recorded an interview that they were going to use on game day beforehand. Like Marcus Freeman wasn't out there doing live interviews Friday night, right?
Exactly. At his home stadium. Like, he wasn't out there at 3:30 when the game kicked off, or when the show kicked off, and he certainly wasn't out there at 6:00. Like, I mean, that was embarrassing, is what it was. That was a you can't read the room kind of a situation for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like I said, that's where it crossed the line and it became a circus and not a team motivating thing, because the players aren't going to hear that. They're actually getting ready for the game.
Right.
So being out there did
You're
nothing.
doing your team no service at all by being out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that was embarrassing is what it was. Now, I will say this. I watched his post-game press conference. And it's about as humble as I've ever seen Curt Cignetti be.
We have no choice but to be humble once you get your butt whipped, right?
You would have thought it would have been like that all the way leading up to the game, too.
I really wish that I could have been there to hear what was said in the handshake that 2 head coaches
that was
after
glorious.
the game. Because he said something, Marcus Freeman, and then like it looked like Freeman was kind of trying to leave, and Cignetti, like kept talking, and Freeman kind of gave him the look like, all right, I'm out of here, man. We're gonna go celebrate.
That was a moment where I almost wanted like Freeman to like throw him a banana, like obviously it wasn't a racist situation, but like just we heard you kind of a thing, you know what I mean? Like that's what I wanted to happen, but it kind of did. I mean, it kind of did. It's like just keep your mouth shut. Hey, here's a tip for you: keep your mouth shut next time. Just not good.
I thought, and again, like Indiana's defense played pretty well most of the night. I was, and I know, like, I wasn't expecting, and I know they had a significant injury on their offensive line, but I wasn't expecting their offensive line to just be, I don't want to say flat out bad, but Notre Dame just whipped them.
All night long.
I wasn't expecting Notre Dame to just whip them the way they did up front.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Notre Dame's defense came ready to play. I mean, bottom line, Notre Dame's defense came ready to play, and that's what gives me look. Georgia's offensive line is better than Indiana's offensive line. I don't think any of us would say otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I still think Notre Dame is going to make them work for whatever they get against Georgia, right? And I'm not saying they're going to dominate the way they did against IU, but I don't know if the moment was too big for IU. I don't know any of that, but they were in the face.
Big for their coach.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's a great call. They were not only physically in the face of Curtis Rourke, they were also in his head. They're also in his head. And while they didn't get as much pressure on Rourke that I would have wanted physically, They did it mentally because he was throwing the ball all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was putting it in the dirt. He was throwing it out of bounds. Like, he wasn't even giving his guys a shot, in this game. So they got to him. There's no doubt about it. And again, Georgia's starting a guy that's never started a game before in college in a pretty big stage. Maybe he'll be amazing. Maybe he will be. Maybe I'm wrong. But Notre Dame's going to make him think a lot in this game.
No, I agree. And that's like, you underestimate this Notre Dame defense at your peril.
Correct.
That's what it comes down to. And while, that wasn't Rourke's worst game of the season, but it was among
it had to be close
games of the season. Yeah,
it had to be close.
From a pure passing standpoint, the Ohio State game was by far his worst. I think this was probably like his second or third worst afterwards. So.
Right.
Okay, Vince, I've got a grievance.
Oh, here we go.
So there's this old man that I sat next to in the press box the other night.
Oh God.
And he's like, it's cold in here. And then I, look up at the windows, they're cracked open a little bit. And I'm like, it feels kind of comfortable in here to me. And then he's complaining, at halftime, the pasta's no good. He can't eat the pasta. Do you know who I'm talking about, Vince? You have become spoiled press box Vince. I don't even know who I'm sitting to most of the time now.
Coming right at me, huh? That's how this is going to go. I got a lot of problem with you people.
I just felt like we'd have fun with that one.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. The pasta wasn't good. I was really disappointed.
I agree on the pasta.
I was disappointed in the spread. I don't know why they can't just go back to the chicken like we used to have back in the day.
You're
Nelson's
hung
chicken.
up on that Porta Pit chicken.
I will always be hung up on it. It was such an easy thing, though, because
chicken.
They make it right outside the stadium. You put it in a cooler. You bring it up to the press box. You get a guy with a giant glove, and he just puts it on your plate.
Everything's made in-house now.
I know. It's disappointing.
So, yeah.
Disappointing.
Press box Vince. That's a different Vince, ladies and gentlemen.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I 20 years of sitting up in the press box has absolutely spoiled me.
I thought it was pretty nice. Like, I liked, we did get a little bit more ambiance because they had
and that's why they opened the windows.
The windows cracked open. I think you only noticed it because you knew they were going to be open because they said in that email.
Probably.
Because I didn't even know. I was like, I feel pretty comfortable in here to me. You're like, it's cold.
It's cold. Leave me alone.
I'm going to bring you a heating pad and a blanket next time. Next December when we're sitting up there again.
It's exactly. When again, I like your thought process there. But you know what solved the problem for me was going and standing outside for a quarter and a half.
There you go.
When I came back in, it's toasty.
That's true.
Felt great. It felt great. So, it is what it is. I actually told somebody, before the game started, I was like, if I wasn't up in the press box, I'd probably just watch the game at home.
I think you might have told me that.
It's probably true. This is where I'm at.
Oh my goodness. All right. Do you have anything that you want to before we? I've got this.
No, continue.
I'll make sure that you get some of yours in.
No, I'll interject as we go. Yeah, I'll interject as we go.
I mean, we touched on this in the main segment, but the narratives that teams didn't belong in the playoff because they lost lopsided games. Look, most of the same people who are saying the wrong teams got in the playoffs were probably the same people picking those teams to win upsets last week.
Exactly.
You can't have it both ways. I get that everybody wants to have it both ways, but I'm just stop it. Stop it. Like you're still going to get some of these games that are going to go like this. Like to me, everyone's ripping obviously Indiana and SMU, Lane Kiffin's, riding Tennessee, and then Tennessee loses. So, you don't have no leg to stand on at that point. Tennessee was clearly deserving based on the record. They only had 2 losses. So, it's very easy to go back and second guess this after all of these different results. It's not like there haven't been lopsided playoff games before. Alabama pounded Michigan State a few years back. TCU, remember, they got into the national championship game and got their butts whipped, but they still won a semifinal in a 4-team playoff. Sometimes these things happen. LSU spanked some teams around who was it that they beat? Oklahoma. They just blasted Oklahoma a few years back in the playoff. Like, this stuff happens, right? Like, even in the 4-team playoff, you saw some of these lopsided games.
Almost every time, Sean.
To me, the bigger problem is the giving the buys, the automatic buys to the conference champions. You know, like, the teams that were the actual 3 and 4 seeds had to play in this first round game, you know, because Boise State and Arizona State got those first round buys because they were lower seeds, but they were the highest ranked of the 2 of the 4 highest ranked of the conference champions, you know? So, like, if you don't have that, I think you're naturally, like, if you actually gave the 4 buys based on merit, like the 4 teams that you actually think are the 4 best teams in the country, or even if you just say, you know, like, only 1 per conference, but still, you know, like, you're going to have closer to a true top 4. Like, if you did it that way this year, you would have had Boise State and Indiana playing in the first round. I think that's probably a pretty evenly matched game. You would have had Clemson and Tennessee. You know, Tennessee would have been favored in that game. You know, like, Alabama, I think, actually would have been in the playoff if you didn't, you know, do it that way, because of the fact that, you know, teams end up getting pushed down in that whole thing. I think they would have, like, played Ohio State, and you would have had Notre Dame playing Arizona State. I think Notre Dame still wins that game, but the entire first round looks different if you do it that way.
Look, here's the amazing part, right? So it was chalk in the first round, right? And there were blowouts, and the games weren't all that competitive, and I get that. And Brian actually went over, when we did upon further review last night, he went over every single 14 playoff that we've had up to this point, and there were blowouts every single year,
right?
Most of the time, multiple, by the way, every single year except
because
one.
The team that won the championship was just that much better than everybody else.
Correct. And so, you know, this is to be expected. Look, it was chalk because it was a bunch of home venues, and they were the better teams. They were the higher seeded teams. They were better teams. You move on to the second level now, right? Round 2 or whatever they're calling it, semifinals. I think there's a legitimate possibility that every single lower ranked team could win in this round. I think there's a legitimate possibility that can happen. And that's because of the way that they were forced to do the seeding. You know what I mean? Like, you could make a case for every single lower ranked, you know, the quote unquote away team to win every game, all 4 games. It's an absolute possibility, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. That's messed up to me a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't like that. Like, I'm fine with conference champions getting in, but I don't think they should be automatically rewarded with a bye. And this isn't Notre Dame fan talking. If you don't want to give Notre Dame a bye because they're not in a conference every single time, whatever. What I witnessed on Friday, I will take that every single year and be very happy with it. You know what I mean?
The home game advances.
I'm honest. I'm fine with it. I you know, there's no travel involved. You know, it's a home game. Like, I'll do that every year. That's fine. So this isn't a Notre Dame homer take.
Even if you have to take an extra blanket up to the press box. Yes,
absolutely. I'm low for next time. It's all good. I haven't witnessed a December home game before. But Arizona State and Boise State get an automatic bye, like, that was a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow for a lot of teams. You know what I mean? So I think they just need to tweak it a little bit. I just don't think that the automatic bye should be automatically to conference champions.
Right.
I think that's a little much for me.
Unfortunately, it's probably not going to change next year, because this year and next year are part of the same contract. It's after next year when the new contract starts. So, like, to get the playoff expanded to 12 teams this year, remember, like, all the conference commissioners, it had to be a unanimous vote to do this expansion. And to change it next year, it's going to have to be a unanimous vote. And, you know, like, the Mountain West isn't going to vote to take away a bye from Boise State, right? You know, like, these, you're not going to get anything unanimous unless you're going to come up probably with, you know, like, an extra 30 million per conference or something like that. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to, right? Is more money at the end of the day. So it's probably not going to change next year, but they still haven't put together what the format is going to be for the year after
when they go
next.
When they up it, yeah.
Right. But they've got to get all that all figured out. Is it going to expand again? Like, is it going to go to 14? Do they take away some of these spots? It'll be interesting because, part of it, I don't want to say it's the Notre Dame clause, but that was definitely with Jack Swarbrick in that room working out the detail, like the finer points of this whole deal. Like that was one of the things that was considered. Well, if Notre Dame wants to be a part of this, what's the concession? Well, the concession was, okay, Notre Dame doesn't have to play that extra game in a conference championship. So their concession is the best they can ever be is a 5 seed. And we found out pretty quickly, I don't know like how many models they ran when they were, looking at this different stuff. Like I definitely, and I think you're probably the same, but like personally didn't realize that Notre Dame could still be, like ranked number 5, but be pushed down to where they are, like in danger of being pushed all the way down to 8 potentially.
Right.
Based on these other conference champions.
Yeah, I don't like that either. Obviously, I mean, I don't want to make it as simple because I think it'll be a year-to-year thing. I don't want to make it as simple as this, but like as long as Notre Dame is hosting, I'm fairly happy. But at the same time, that one, because like if this was the old school 14 play, like Notre Dame probably would have been 3rd. You know what I mean? They probably would have been ranked 3rd. And they got bumped all the way down to 7, and that seems a little iffy to me, to be honest with you. So, look, I'm happy with their path. In this particular year, I think it's a very doable path for Notre Dame. They're going to have to play their best football, obviously. I think they need to kind of figure about who gets the buys and what that looks like. But You're right. It's probably not going to change next year. But I would also say I don't think anybody would have predicted the way that it finished out, right? I don't think anybody would have predicted the Big 12 and, the Mountain West, the group of 5 team getting the bye.
Getting the buys.
I just...
Well, because
the ACC getting the 12 seed,
when this format was, when they came up with this format, it was still Power 5 conferences, and it wasn't the Pac-12 falling into the Pacific Ocean,
right?
and the best team, like the fact that you've got all these former Pac-12 teams in the college football playoff winning other conferences. No one would have anticipated that, like just the way the whole thing shifted to, you had relatively balanced schedules in even in the SEC, in the Big Ten, and now everyone's done away with the divisions. Even teams within their own conferences are not playing the same schedule, like from one team to the next, which is part of why you get Indiana, that's part of why you get SMU, because all these teams didn't play each other. So they came up with this format when it was the Power 5. Now it's the Power 4 with completely different looking conferences than they had, 3 years ago or whatever it was when they came up with this stuff 4 years ago. So,
yeah, it's just, look, I still think the 12-team playoff is better than the 4. It made the last month of the season riveting. It did. It made it riveting. Now, there's always going to be complainers who didn't get in. That's going to happen no matter how many teams you have in the playoff. That's always going to happen. And the reality is there's 5-ish teams that can realistically win a national championship this year. And so what that means is there's 7 in the playoff that don't. And we just lost 4 of them. You know what I mean? So
two of the legit contenders are going to play each other now in the second round in a rematch of a 1-point game.
Agreed.
In the regular season.
Yeah. So I think in a 12-team playoff, the cream's going to rise to the top. You know what I mean? There may be an upset here or an upset there, but once you get to like the Final 4, especially the championship, you've got 2 really good teams at that point. Right. It's very difficult. It's just not like basketball, right? Where a Cinderella can kind of make a run. I don't see that happening in football.
But look, because there's also going to be this conversation from both the Big Ten and the SEC, because remember, like there was already talk about how when this next contract comes along, they want guarantees of how many slots they're going to get. Like they want like 4 teams get so if you're going to guarantee the top 4 from whatever conference, you're not going to solve any problems. Like you still have to figure out a way to base this more on merit than just, like automatic guarantees based on winning something like a conference championship game that really at the end of the day doesn't mean that much. It only means something because you're getting a bunch of money for playing these games, So like that's going to be part of it as well. Do the conferences ultimately decide within the next however many years that's feasible? Are they just going to get rid of these conference championship games because it hurts them more than anything else? And that would, like especially from the Notre Dame perspective, that would level things out if these conferences do get rid of the conference championship games, and that puts Notre Dame back in play to be a team that can get a top 4 seed.
That's a good call. like you said, I mean, look, conference championships is a money grab. So I don't know if they're ever going to get rid of them. But I think from a competitive football standpoint, what's the what's the benefit of playing in the conference championship game? I think most teams would be like, look, we're out. Like we're cool with it. We don't really want to be a part of it because it could only hurt us, really.
Right.
Especially if they take away the automatic bye.
Yes.
So that's a really good point. But I think it's something that you realistically need to look at, especially from a conference, like as a conference president outside of the money grab of a conference championship game, and they want to get as many teams in as they possibly can. You're better off not having a conference championship. You're better off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you think?
The question is simply going to come down to, can they replace the revenue that each conference is making from those by expanding the playoff? Because that's what's ultimately probably, going to happen. Is they're going to have to expand the playoff to at least 14 teams and replace, and it's going to be a pool of conference championship money, because the SEC obviously has its revenue, the ACC, they all have a different revenue coming from their conference championship game. The SEC is the biggest moneymaker, but that's what it's going to come down to, is how those conferences replace that revenue by getting rid of those championship games with expansion of the playoff. But again, part of that also directly relates to how many teams from your conference you get in, because each team means more guaranteed revenue.
100%.
So
I mean, the conference has screwed themselves by getting so big. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, because at the end of the day, do we think IU is going to make is 11-1 if the conference is smaller? No, because they're going to have to play better teams.
Look, and that's why I also don't feel sorry for the SEC for whatever they think they deserve. Like the whole Herb Street comments about, it's not what, deserve, and, all this different stuff. Like, I don't feel sorry for the SEC, because going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, nobody made you expand your conference and add all these teams. Nobody made you pillage the Big 12. Nobody made you, nobody made the Big 10 pillage the Pac-12. Nobody made you guys do all this stuff. So like, I don't feel sorry for these 3-loss SEC teams getting left out for a 1-loss Indiana team, regardless of how deserving everybody thinks they are not, because of the fact that they lost a lopsided game, because nobody made you expand to begin with. So, and that's why, that's why your teams have more losses. Now, that's part of why your teams have more losses, because you expanded your conference and completely dissolved another Power 5 conference.
Correct. Yep, absolutely. Completely agree with that. I got one for you.
Okay.
So this one came to me as I was watching the press conference today, and it just reminded me of what happens once a team like Notre Dame, I'm obviously speaking about Notre Dame here because that's the team that I follow. What happens when national people start to descend on these press conferences and ask questions and
the Zooms?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, the question about how this game is going to be like the 1981 game.
That was not a national person. That was someone here in town.
Was it really?
On one of your local TV stations.
Lord, I didn't recognize the voice. Okay, well, like those kinds of questions in this moment are just dumb. They're just dumb. I'm so like, what are you doing? Why are you asking Marcus Freeman to talk about a game that happened before he was born? Like, he didn't watch the film on that game. Like, are you
what kind of
kidding me?
impact does the Herschel Walker Georgia Notre Dame Sugar Bowl have on this game?
What story are you doing that you need a quote from Marcus Freeman about the 1981 game with Georgia and Notre Dame? Like, what story are you working on? Like, wow, man. Like, those kinds of questions, and he's going to get more because there's going to be another press conference, obviously, at the end of the week, and he's going to have to answer questions, and they're just...
Well, they're at least... I don't think he has another one because we're going to get to talk to some players and the coordinators.
Is that what it is on Thursday? Okay.
But I think he'll probably, he'll obviously have another press conference once he gets down to New Orleans, and you're going to have even more national people around at that point. Like, I felt like in the post game, for as many like national people as around, like the post game stuff, went pretty well. Today was some different angles than we're used to. That's for sure.
It's the curmudgeon in me. It's the whole stupid questions. It's the loaded press box where every time I had to get up, I had to bump into you and bump into Brian. There was no room to move around. Like, I didn't like it, man.
Vince, you got your rally towel.
I did. It's in my bag right here.
Is it?
I'm gonna hang it up in my office. I hate rally towels. I'm gonna hang it up.
I was pleased when I walked up to our chairs and there were rally towels hanging off the chairs in the press box. I was like, well, Vince is going to be happy. He got something for free today. So
I heard some complaints from people in the stands because they didn't have the rally towels on the seats. They were like handing them out of boxes, like down in the concourse. And so a lot of people didn't get them.
So you'd rather have a frozen? So they didn't get them because...
So, you know what I mean? You had to know to go get them.
Yeah.
And people didn't know, and then it would run out in some places, but they'd have a ton of boxes of them in other places. And so not everybody was able to get one, and people were kind of scrounging, from what I understand. So I don't think that was handled very well, but I'm still a non-rally towel guy, but it's a night, like in game, like I think it's stupid, but keepsake wise, I'm going to, put it up on my bulletin board in my office. That's cool.
For sure.
Like I kept my credential and I kept the rally towel, and I was disappointed. No programs. There were no programs up in the press box for us. I would have kept that too.
That's true. I was looking for. I usually don't look forward to the program, but I thought the program would be nice to have years from now,
right?
For the first playoff game.
That's my point exactly.
I've got 2 rally towels, so
well, there you go. There you go.
And I've got your binoculars. You left your binoculars.
Thank you for picking those up, by the way.
Yes,
appreciate you. I'm going to have to get those from you before I leave.
That's true. That's true. I think Joe was asking. Vince is going to the Sugar Bowl. Are you alone? Is it just you?
Well, me and my wife, but she's not going to the game. So yes, It's just me from IB. So
okay,
I'm it. I'm the lone because you got women's basketball, and Brian and I talked about it, and so we kind of worked out. If Notre Dame keeps winning, who's going to go to what? That kind of thing. So I'm going, baby. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Never been to New Orleans before.
I've been there once. I've driven in proximity to the dome, but I've never been in the dome. So
yeah, I'm excited about it. I was looking at some pictures today, and of course it's an indoor stadium, so it's an open air, press box kind of. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like the Joyce Center press box. You know what I mean? It's just kind of up a little bit, and everybody's in that kind of a deal. But hey, whatever, man.
I'll be curious to get your report next week.
Oh, I'm sure I'll be complaining about something.
Sure you will.
No doubt about it.
You and Dabo Swinney.
I didn't get a parking pass, so I got to take the shuttle.
Oh, boy.
Somebody else.
Already got denied the parking pass.
Yeah,
huh?
like immediately.
Man.
Immediately.
I remember I took the shuttle when we went to the BCS championship game. And I mean, it was a little bit of a drive from the hotel, but it was still the only problem was at the end of the night trying to get back to the hotel. The shuttle.
That's what I'm worried about.
We stood out there for a long time waiting for the bus to get back to the hotel.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it all goes. And the other thing was the last bowl game I was at, I didn't stay in the media hotel. So it was more driving and things like that. And so I was nervous, but I am staying in the media hotel this time, so I can take the shuttle. You know what I mean? So I was like, well, no parking pass. What am I supposed to do? But staying in the media hotel, so it should work out pretty well. I'm excited about that. No driving to press conferences and things. So that'll be good.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to continue with a couple more grievances.
Bring it
here.
Bring it.
Festivus. I'm like Dabo Swinney.
Ooh.
Apparently has never been a fan. He was not a fan of expanding to 12 teams.
Interesting.
And even though like his team is the biggest beneficiary of the expanded 12 team by winning the ACC and getting an automatic bid, he still doesn't like it because he says it makes this new format makes college football just like the NFL, basically. And I completely disagree with that. It is not like the NFL because, you have more teams still in college football. In the NFL, you still only have 32 teams and you have a much greater percentage of teams that are getting in. Like percentage wise, you still have a very small fraction of college teams who are actually making it in the playoffs. 2, the NFL plays much more balanced schedules than what colleges are playing. And it's pretty cut and dry. Based on records. And, obviously in college, there's still a lot more subjectivity involved, which is why there's all this complaining that we had this weekend. So I think that it is not like the NFL at all. There are more teams, but I still think that there is a very distinct difference between, just the whole formats and the way they do things. So no, Dabo, no,
it's not even close. There's 130 plus teams in college football and only 12 make it into the postseason. I mean, that's, or at least into the playoff, excuse me. I mean, obviously bowl games are the postseason, but the playoffs only has 12 teams. Like that percentage is really low. I mean, that's what it's about 10%. Whereas in the NFL, it's like 30% or so to the teams that make it in, right? It's
not
about
even 10%. It's like very low. Yeah.
I mean, so like, yeah, it's not even close to the same. I mean, not even close. So it's and they only have 2 buys in the NFL, I do believe, right? The 2 top seeds are the ones that get the buys. And all games are played at home stadiums until you get to the Super Bowl. So, no, this is nothing like that. Nothing. And I tend to agree with Dabo on a lot of things. Not this time. Sorry, buddy. I like the kind of the all shucks Dabo. I kind of dig him. I like him. Let's have pizza on Selection Sunday. Let's just do our thing.
Right.
I think some of his like little, making the shirts about everybody on the other bus or whatever. I think some of that gets a little old, but I do like Dabo as a coach. This take is just not great in any way.
I agree. Great. Obviously, I mean, I came up with it, so I obviously agree.
This is very true.
I know that, one of your grievances was with the obnoxious Indiana fans. Do you want to expand on that?
I do want to expand on that. This is and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but this is a big one for me, and it's a very recency, grievance, obviously. But, and we're going to have obnoxious Georgia fans, but the difference between obnoxious Georgia fans and obnoxious IU fans is obnoxious Georgia fans have something to actually brag about. Like they've been here before. They know what it takes to win. IU fans have no clue. They're like, whoa, we're in the playoff. We're just obviously really good and you suck and we're going to fight you. And like they have no leg to stand on. Like, don't be obnoxious. Be happy that you're here, man. Be happy that you're here. You got to be in the playoff for one day and you blew it. You blew it. You blew it, and you're probably not going to have an opportunity to be back anytime soon. So you should have soaked it up. You should have been happy to be there, and you weren't.
Trash talking.
You just pissed everybody off is what you did, led by your head coach. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised because they're all taking on the identity of their head coach. But like, I said it at the end of the post-game show, and I'll say it here as well. IU fan, all my friends who are IU fans, you know what? You enjoy basketball season. We're going to keep talking about football.
You're going to be grumbling about basketball season too.
Well,
for that matter.
The fact that Notre Dame's basketball team without their best player is probably still better than IU. I mean, just saying.
Yeah.
But, enjoy the candy stripe. That's the other thing. Can we talk about the fact that
I didn't see as many candy cane pants as I thought I would, but I definitely saw some.
There was a good amount in my opinion, but like the fact that this is the funny part to me. IU fans don't even understand what it's like to cheer for a football team this late in the year because they're wearing basketball stuff to a football game. There's no candy stripes on the football team, guys.
That's right.
This is a basketball thing. And what do we wear to the game? What do we wear? Candy stripes. Yeah, let's pretend it's a basketball game. Like, come on, man. Come on.
Did you hear from any of those Indiana fans who you were here, today? I guess you were on Christmas break. So
I'm on Christmas break, but no. The answer is no. At all. No.
I think it's hilarious.
No. They kind of dropped off the face of the earth from social media.
I think it's fun that for maybe the first time ever, Notre Dame and Purdue fans had something to unite about.
It's true. It's true. One of my good friends is a Purdue alum, and he loves to root against Notre Dame. But in this particular case, he was rooting for the Irish. His hatred for IU is much greater than his hatred for Notre Dame, which I appreciated.
It's like
that was a Festivus miracle right there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Festivus miracle. It's like no bagel. If you're familiar with the episode of The Strike is what the episode is actually.
The Strike.
Called.
That's right.
So I just want to throw out like people who doubted Riley Leonard, here we are, baby. Here we are.
It's a good
on to the quarterfinals. All this, Riley Leonard ain't the guy who can get it done, and he's not a good enough passer. That started to finally die a little bit in November, as this offense just continued to take off. But like, I think this is a guy who just at some point, he's talked about it, obviously, just like sometimes you got to say, what the freak, right? Like we obviously can't say, like the actual, he's, just like risky business, sometimes you just got to say, what the hell, what the F, whatever it is that you want to say. And you just kind of got to go for it. And like, that's what Riley Leonard has done. And you don't have to be a perfect passer to be a really good college quarterback. Scoring touchdowns is really all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And like this offense took off when he, like you could just see it clicking from him. And he's still, again, like he's not going to be the guy who's, just going to go out there and pick apart a defense. But when you have to account for Riley Leonard and whichever of those explosive running backs, Love or Price, are in the backfield. And again, like that's why I felt like it was only one play.
Yeah.
But that Jeremiah Love touchdown run, all 98 yards of it, set the tone for the rest of the night, because that's all Indiana was focused on for the rest of the night, was making sure they weren't going to give up another one of those plays. And it just allowed Riley Leonard to go out there and operate the offense. And they basically had their way with Indiana for the rest of the night.
Love that. Love it. Because it's very true. I mean, just because he does it in a different way, an unconventional way, right? People think that he's a horrible quarterback, or thought, I should say, and they wasn't getting a whole lot of respect going into the playoff either. I mean, he was ranked in the bottom half of the quarterbacks that were in the playoff, which I think was grossly misjudged, frankly, because he was the X factor in this game, and they went as he went offensively. And look, I give all the flowers, obviously, to Jeremiah Love when he was able to do, but Riley Leonard kept those drives moving and kept this offense moving and scoring those points. So I'm with you on that one for sure.
Yeah, Brody said he didn't have a great passing game, 72%. So like your idea of what's great, I guess, I don't know, but he said he was pressured on 50% of his dropbacks. The offensive line had I didn't think that they had a bad game, but again, like it's his mobility erases, some things up front, and the line was definitely different after
Rocco went out.
The Rocco injury. Yeah. It was different. So
no doubt.
Hey, and as Joe said, what about Faison? Like big time. And you needed a performance like that from one of the Notre Dame receivers. That was probably the best performance by a Notre Dame receiver. The deep ball from Riley Leonard to Faison on that 44-yard pass was obviously big, but I mean, just for them to show that is a possibility as well going into a game like Georgia, that's big.
Right.
That's big.
Yep. Yeah, and the O-line didn't have a great game. Nobody's saying that they did. Knapp had an amazing block on the 98-yard run. Didn't have a great game after that.
Against one of the best defensive linemen in the Big Ten.
Exactly. He lost a lot of battles against him, but guess what? He won the ones that mattered. I mean, that's all that I care about. And look, the offensive line as a whole didn't do great once Rocco got injured. That's what happens when 1/5 of your unit goes down. I mean, that's what happens. So, I'm not giving them a pass. They played well enough. They didn't play great. They played well enough. By the way,
since this is Festivus and the feats of strength and all, how about Jeremiah? Jeremiah Love showed the speed obviously on the 98-yarder, but how about that? How about that stiff arm?
Oh man, stiff arm was beautiful. It was. That stiff arm was beautiful. It was great.
I feel like I need to have an issue with Ryan Day, even though he won this weekend, it just feels like you don't need a reason to file grievance against Ryan Day, right? Again, he won. Okay. You did your thing.
Right.
Man, I tell you what, though, for that stadium to be 44% or whatever it was.
Is that what it ended up being?
Oh, yeah, that's what they were saying. Wow. Over 40%.
That's
orange. And I guess like Columbus itself, there was just orange everywhere around town.
Wow.
Maybe it saved his job. I don't know. But fans, I'll be curious to see what this turnout is out there to the Rose Bowl now for this Oregon game.
That's a bit more of a hike. It's a drive from Tennessee to, Ohio to Columbus. That's a hike to the Rose Bowl. Now that they're going to be in all these neutral sites and and all that, I am very curious to see how everybody travels and what that looks like. And that is going to be interesting because there was some massive home field advantage, across. I mean, granted, 44%, but it was still home field advantage for Ohio State. You know what I mean? So,
sorry, my elbow is locking up here. I'm trying
to pop your shoulder out, or what are you
stretch it out
over there?
Chief Brody was just talking about the Jeremiah Love hurdle for the loss. That was an interesting play. It's like,
that was ugly.
Still made the hurdle, but
he did make the hurdle, but there was 3 guys waiting for him. Yeah, that was.
That's right.
It was not great. It was not great.
G baby,
Stay
Brian
tuned.
will be doing a live show at 8:00 tonight, and he is going to get into the Malachi Fields sighting. He's going to break that down for you. So.
Absolutely.
I think it's another nice commitment for Notre Dame, veteran wide receiver, a guy with some size.
But, no doubt.
Brian will be breaking it down a little bit more.
No doubt.
At 8.
Go ahead. I said I like the last one. The last one's really good that you had written down.
Okay, I was going to say, do you have any more grievances?
Well,
I'm surprised that people in the chat haven't thrown more of their own grievances.
I was going to go down a couple of other paths, but I don't know that it's necessary. I like where we've kind of been sticking kind of sport specific.
Okay.
Tonight I can, but I don't know that we need to. How about that? The next one is a good one though.
So my last one tonight. People who freak out on social media,
oh my god,
from play to play, in the moment, it's like, oh, we gave up a 15-yard pass. This defense is horrible. Oh my god, I just put the drink down, put the social media away,
just put your phone down, man.
Just put the phone down for a little while and just watch the game and let it play out. It's like the game, how many. The game is not over in the first quarter, right?
Right. Exactly. Look.
And there's just so much of this.
Here's the deal. There's a reason that I don't get on the boards during games. I can't do it. I love everybody that's on the board. You're all amazing people.
Yes.
But the angst that is just shed on the message board during the game.
Is that the true BK PTSD? Is that what that is?
I think that's just Notre Dame PTSD. It's not just BK. It is above and beyond all of that. You know what I mean? It's just, you're right. From play to play, if there's one negative play that happens, there'd be like instantly 2 pages.
We've got the worst defense in the world. How is this happening?
Instantly 2 pages added, to the whole thing.
And by the way, like the whole, again, so much freak out at the end of the game. They're up 20-3, obviously. And, there's only so much time left.
Right.
And so you're obviously going to be playing prevent defense. And the amount of people who had, just like you would have thought were stroking out because Notre Dame gave up a couple of late touchdowns at the end of the game. To me, like and Al Golden talked about it, they obviously, changed the way they were doing things and the kind of looks that they were giving them. It's like Jack Morris. Do you remember Jack Morris, the pitcher, Detroit Tigers?
Oh, yeah.
Where he started out, pitched, like 10 innings in Game 7 of the 1991 World Series for the Minnesota Twins.
Yep.
Jack Morris had an ERA in the 4s for most of his career because he came from an era where, like, if you were a starting pitcher, your job was to go out there and, suck up at least 7 innings.
Oh, you eat innings.
If not 9.
Yeah.
And like Jack Morris was not afraid if he was ahead of giving up a couple runs late in the game. Like he pitched to the scoreboard, and his job was just to go out there and give you, the most innings that you could and just grind out innings and find ways, like sometimes you're going to win those games. Sometimes you're going to lose that game, but he pitched to the scoreboard. He wasn't concerned about giving up a couple of runs here or there, because, like the big picture. Right. So like and that's what Al Golden was doing at the end of the game the other night. He wasn't concerned about giving up a few yards, giving up a couple touchdowns because the math showed that Notre Dame was going to win that game.
Correct.
The game was won for all intents and purposes. Yep. So freaking out because they give up a couple of touchdowns at the end of the game. Like, come on. Like style points mean 0 at this point.
At this point in the season. Yeah, absolutely.
All that matters is you walk off the field with a win.
I hated those garbage time touchdowns during the regular season. Hated them. I wasn't a huge fan of them in the game on Friday as I'm walking to the car, because we left a little bit early, try to get home, start the show, that kind of a thing. And that's when they scored those 2 touchdowns. It's like, oh, are you serious? Like onside kick too? Like, okay. But I was never worried about Notre Dame losing that game. And at the end of the day, for 4 games, I don't care what it looks like. I don't. And anybody that says they do care, if Notre Dame ends up winning 4 games in a row here in the postseason, they're going to be national champions, okay? If you care how that happens, then you got way too much to worry about in your life. Like I just want them to win, man. Like I don't care because on the T-shirt that says national championship, it doesn't say, and they only won by a little bit.
Right.
Like I don't care.
One more point is all you need.
It doesn't matter, man.
One more point is all you need.
Wins, baby. Get me the W's. It does not matter how ugly it looks. And honestly, Sean, the uglier it looks, the more money we make because people be complaining about it. So get those W's. It's all that matters.
So someone just said that Brian has posted 8:30 start time.
I did check the green room, as they say, and it is posted for 8:30.
Okay, he told me 8, so I was saying 8. Yep. 8:30 is apparently when it's going to start, but they will cover the Malachi Fields. Like everything about the Virginia wide receiver in there and a lot more, I believe. So this is going to be our only show before Christmas.
This is true.
Still, because of like the schedule and stuff like that, maybe something that we'll have like this show specifically later in the week. Obviously, Brian will be doing some shows later in the week, but there's a lot of stuff like, let's be honest. When Notre Dame won, we had no idea what the media schedule was going to look like. Like we didn't even know there was going to be a press conference today until like they didn't announce any of that until after they won, so like there's a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to kind of piece it all together, but at least for the next couple of days, no shows. So,
yep, absolutely. So everybody needs to enjoy their Christmas. Have a great time. Remember to air your grievances tonight.
Yes.
When you sit down at the dinner table, if you haven't done that already, it needs to happen. Air those grievances. We did.
Go get your aluminum pole.
That's right. I plan on some feats of strength tonight when my kid gets home. I got to still show him who's boss. Okay. I watched that episode of Seinfeld, by the way, today. And
I've got to watch it once I'm done here.
It's freaking amazing. Come on, pin your father. It's not over till you pin your father. That's great. Stop crying and get over here.
It's a Festivus miracle.
Oh, that's great. Oh, it's so funny. Father David has no faith in me whatsoever.
Father David has $50 on Dylan.
It's fair. The kid's very strong. I don't know what else to say. Like he's very strong, but it is what it is. Yep. Had a great talk with the head coach today, though. So
nice.
I think we're getting closer to a commitment.
All right.
I'm getting excited.
Looking forward to that.
So
we'll have to talk about it.
That's right, man. Well, there's talk of a commitment show, so we'll see what happens.
Excellent. All right. Well, everybody have a great Christmas. Appreciate you being here tonight. Appreciate you putting up with our airing of grievances for Festivus for the rest of us.
So great.
Hit the like button before you leave. And we will talk to you later at some point. Notre Dame moving on in the college football playoff. And that's, that's something we don't have to grieve about, right? Like, it's kind of cool. Like, I've lost track of how many times that I've driven to Notre Dame in the last couple of weeks with everything extra.
I know, right?
But we're all excited about it because
we get a practice. We get to go see a practice on Saturday. I'm kind of pumped for that.
That's right.
I'm excited.
All right. Have a great Christmas. And we'll talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.
Merry Christmas, everybody.